Hey everyone, welcome. We're so happy to have Michael Merman, Matthew Harper with us today talking about incubators and accelerators. Man, this has been a solid month in talking about private funding options and just giving you folks some really great information with respect to looking at alternative means of fundraising and financing for your business. So let's jump in here. For those of you who don't know who we are, you should know who we are. SCORE is part of the SBA. We've been around for a very long time. We have over 300 chapters nationwide. Our particular chapter, I'm partial. I think we're one of the best in the country. We have over 90 volunteers here in Manatee and Sarasota counties, and we're very proud of our chapter and the work that we do in providing you with workshops like this, and also with the mentoring program that we have. If you don't know about us, you can certainly find out more by jumping onto our website, and you can find out more about our services. If you're researching and planning pre-startup, if you're opening a business, if you're growth, or you're even looking at exiting your business, we are the place, we are the resource for you here in the community. And guess what? It's free. I mean, amazing. I've been a consultant for a number of years. I charge clients a lot of money to give them this information. And the mentoring that you get at SCORE is, just top notch. It's amazing. So if you haven't done that yet for your business, definitely jump onto our website and you can request a mentor. Even if you just have a short-term project you need some help with and getting guidance, there are some amazing human beings affiliated with this organization. So, that's what we're here for. We definitely want to thank our sponsors. Without them, we would not be here. So, thank you to them. I think Bank of America is supposed to be on here. Sorry, guys, this is an older slide. I got to update that. But Bank of America just joined our sponsor list, and we've got to put them on there and thank them for their sponsorship as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce our speakers, panelists, experts of the day, Matthew Harper and Michael Merman. These two gentlemen are really leading the charge with the Incubator Accelerator community here in Tampa Bay. And I'm really excited to have both of you here. If you wouldn't mind, take a couple minutes, just introduce yourself to our audience, guys, and give them a little bit about your background so they get what they're coming into. And then we'll jump right in and give them a little bit of intro. How's that sound?
Sure. I guess I'll go first since I'm at the top of the list here. Matt Harper, thanks, Paula, for the introduction at SCORE here. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about kind of what we do and then incubators and accelerators and how it supports startups and small business. So again, thanks. Very quickly about myself, I've been at State College, Florida for about a year. I came on board last summer to build the incubator here at State College of Florida. So I will talk about that a little bit in some slides, but I have been working with startups for the last probably 5 or 6 years. I'm actually retired military, so I've been working with startups and again, small businesses and in a consulting role for probably the last 5 or 6 years. And I will talk a little bit more about kind of our incubator here in a little bit. So thanks again, Paul.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for your service too, man. That's awesome.
Hey, good morning,
Michael?
folks. Yeah, I'm Michael Merman. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Service Corps of Retired Executives. What a great opportunity. Probably the most uncomfortable part of every presentation I do is to talk about myself. Absolutely hate it. But everybody wants to know who that guy is, right? And so I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done a lot of really cool and groovy things over the last 30 years. I've had multiple software development firms. I've owned a restaurant. I've had a management consultancy practice for 30 years. Been part of all sorts of other startups. Some of them even went public. Started my career as a treasury manager in corporate America and landed here at CareerSource 3.5 years ago. They asked me to launch the Accelerator business incubator concept. And today we have a thriving community of folks who are engaged with us, trying to navigate their way to their own individual successes.
Fantastic. Thanks, Michael. You know, guys, I think the very first thing that I want you to do is really just tell folks what is an incubator or an accelerator. I mean, I don't think a lot of folks really know what this terminology means because obviously we're not in Silicon Valley and this isn't like cocktail hour. So really want to give them a good foundation for the discussion the two of you are going to have.
You know, I think it's really an interesting word or two. I don't always know how to describe what we do. And we use the phrase incubator and accelerator, and they mean two different things if you get real technical, okay? Bottom line, though, the model that I manage on behalf of CareerSource Suncoast is the ability to incubate and accelerate personal growth. So a lot of times you think about your business, you think about Shark Tank, you think about, you know, making your pitch, getting investment money, and that's a more traditional model for incubation and acceleration. And that is not the model that we have at the Thrive Center. Thrive is the name of our incubator and accelerator. What we do is we work on personal development. We provide individuals with the business acumen, the skills, the training, the development, the tools to get them to be stronger business folks. And once they escalate into a level of comfort around those things, we begin to talk shop around their business. So incubator and accelerator for us is not the Silicon Valley model.
More of a personal growth and development aspect. Matt, you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing there at SCF?
Yeah, I think, you know, Michael really kind of is spot on. There are lots of different ways to define startups or accelerators and incubators. And one of the things that I think is important for everybody to kind of to understand as the starting point is the difference between a startup and a small business. And we'll talk a little bit about this in my slides in a second here, but just kind of understanding the difference between those two really kind of helps you understand what an incubator and an accelerator, kind of what they do and who they target. And so that's important. So as Michael kind of talked about his organization at Thrive and what Career Suncoast does, the incubator at State College of Florida is really trying to point toward the Silicon Valley model, right? So we are most certainly not an incubator located in San Francisco, but we are actually really geared toward startups in a traditional Silicon Valley or Shark Tank model, where the startup is going to raise equity capital. And Boris talked about that last week, and I encourage everybody to go see that fundraising video.
Yeah, he did a great job on that last week.
He did. And so this is a great kind of segue. His talk was a great segue in just kind of understanding what the models are to help startups. Now, again, we'll talk about this a little bit in a second, but I think it's important to understand that Michael's incubator model and my incubator model at State College, Florida are two entirely different things, but we call ourselves still incubators. And so that's an important thing to understand, that the term incubator is really a term of art, and it can mean a lot of things. So you've got my slide up here. I'll talk very briefly about just kind of in general. State College, Florida is located here. The main campus is in Bradenton, Florida. We have a couple of satellite campuses. And then I am the director of the incubator. It says incubator and accelerator, but we'll just focus on the incubator right now. I am the director of the incubator here at State College, Florida. So the incubator is a public-facing business support organization. And I'll probably go to the next slide. And so my incubator is housed just, again, very briefly, is in the 26 West Center. That's the new building here at State College of Florida. And then within the center, there are 4 specific areas. But specifically what we're talking about today is the incubator. So it's officially called the 26 West Incubator. We rebranded here a few months ago. And that's the incubator here at State College, Florida. And then if you want to go to the next
Fantastic.
slide. Okay. Or we can wait, however you want to.
Yeah, I just wanted to have Michael kind of give the same info on the Suncoast location and what you guys are doing there, because I like this, volley back and forth between the two of you. It gives people an idea of, what their needs are and maybe which one of you might be able to help them in meeting those needs.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. The CareerSource Suncoast model, we have multiple facilities around the community. And I say community, our footprint is the Suncoast, principally Sarasota and Manatee counties. We cover both areas. And our services go well beyond entrepreneurial services. And so we have centers in Bradenton, in Sarasota. We have locations at State College of Florida, at Sarasota Technical and at Manatee Technical. And then we also have an office down in Northport. But our primary Thrive Center is located just north of downtown Sarasota, at the corner of Myrtle and Washington Boulevard. And in that facility, we have co-work space for entrepreneurs. We have, a tech-centric environment, with high-speed internet, scanning, copy equipment, desktop units, the co-work space. We've got several meeting spaces, including large conference spaces for the entrepreneurs to use. And of course, if they want, they can move into our center. They can actually become tenants. And as a tenant, then they have the opportunity then to rub elbows with all of the entrepreneurs who are streaming through the center throughout the day, as well as other tenants who are located in our facility.
Great. That's amazing. Yeah, I think that both of you have some really great services. And maybe, Matt, you want to talk a little bit more specifically about the programs that you guys are offering there at SCF.
Yeah, and I won't talk too long about this, but just kind of understand, again, the Technology Incubator and Accelerator here at State College, Florida. One of the programs that I'll talk about, just because we've already run it, and it will give you an idea of what we provide as an incubator, was a veteran business incubator. So we had 8 veteran startups and small businesses that we put through a program late last year, and we'll talk about that briefly. But on the slide here, you'll see the growth lab. That's where we do have office space. So that's Class A office space. You can come in and rent, just very similar to what Michael kind of just spoke about. So we have a number of offices you can come and rent. And then once you come in and rent those spaces, then you would get the incubation, the business support services on top. And then the list on the right here of the slide is things that one might find in an incubator. So if you come across other incubators, they may have programs that have specific targeted industries or specific targeted focus. So some of the things that we could theoretically do is we could do sports technology, health and wellness. So there's a bunch of different areas, but so that's something that we could theoretically do. But I think for the audience here, it's instructive to know that you can go out and you can find incubators that will help you with specific types of businesses.
Now, Michael, are you specifically focused on tech companies, or do you have an array of folks that you're looking at as your potential market as well?
We do have a large array of entrepreneurs, and they come to us with their concepts and ideas, whether it be in healthcare, technology, consulting sectors. The sky is the limit on the type of businesses that approach us for assistance. I would tell you that one of the things that we did 2 years ago is we began to recognize that there's and this is universal with entrepreneurs, right? Dipping their toes in the water and having a bit of trepidation and fear. And so we sought ways to possibly eliminate some of the fear of becoming an entrepreneur, going out on your own. We like to call them solopreneurs. And we wanted to somehow mask their fears by letting them know they were in good company. And we created this little concept internally where we created micro firms. And micro firms in our little world was we would match up entrepreneurs who had similar interests or similar business models, or in some cases, complementary models to one another, join them together and then allow them to grow together. So as an example, we've had several folks in healthcare who came to us and they wanted to create home out care services, but they realized there were problems because of insurance coding. And so we would match an insurance coder with somebody who wanted to provide home health care services. And then they each complemented one another's business. And next thing you know, they're in partnership with each other.
That's great. And I think one of the things, Matt and I have talked about is really making that distinction, Matt, about the difference between the startup versus the small business.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of folks don't really understand the difference in the terminology. And this is a foundational component, I think, for both of you when you're talking with folks. They really need to figure this out. You want to talk about that a little, Matt?
Sure. Yeah. So this slide in SMB stands for small, medium-sized businesses. And again, these terms are kind of terms of art, right? These are not really definitive terms. But when I, again, as the incubator at State College, Florida, talk about a startup, I'm talking about a specific type of business normally, right? I'm talking normally about a business that's going to require equity, that's going to try to grow fast, and that's going to have an exit. And so what I encourage everybody to do who's listening is to really try to early on understand the type of business they are. Because what happens is, depending on the type of business you are, whether you're a startup in a true Silicon Valley sense, or if you're just a traditional small business, you will need different resources, you will go in different directions, and you will build your business differently. So I'll just take a couple seconds here to talk about some of the businesses, right? So if you're a startup, your type of business, if you're going to raise money as a startup and you're going to raise money from investors, for the most part, you need to be a Delaware C Corp, right? And there's a lot we can talk about there, and I don't want to be too dramatic about this, but if you want to raise money from investors as a startup, you really have to be a Delaware C Corp. Now, if you're a small business, if you're a solopreneur, if you do not want to raise business from or capital from equity investors, then you can be an LLC, you can be an S Corp, you can be a benefit corporation, right? But understanding what type of business you are kind of points you to the type of business entity you are, right? So that's the legal entity. Again, type of funding, we talked about that briefly. If you're a traditional small business, if you want to open up a bar, if you want to open up a dry cleaner, those are types of businesses that banks understand. Those are types of business that that most kind of debt sources understand. And again, kind of building off of the conversation last week, that is a different type of funding than a startup where you want to build something that nobody's ever seen before. Nobody has any idea how it's going to grow or fund. And then, so for that model, the startup model, you would get equity capital, right? You give up a piece of your company in return for funding. Or again, if you're a small business, then you can go to the SBA, you can go to a bank theoretically, and you can get debt financing. So the business model, just very briefly, again, if you're a tech startup and nobody's ever heard of you before, nobody has any idea what your business plan looks like. You're a traditional small business, people have done it before, you can find business plans, lots of people to help you because that path has already been worked.
It's a proven path. The proven path versus the unproven path.
Exactly. And then just one last thing that I like to add here, which I think is very important for everybody to listen to, is the time commitment. As a startup incubator, one of the things that I want to understand from founders is how much time they're putting into their business. So again, if we think about startups and going to investors, an investor who's going to give you money doesn't want you to be a part-time founder. They want you to be a full-time founder who's all in, right? If you're doing a small business, again, depending on what type of small business it is, you can do that part-time. It can be a side hustle, it can be a lifestyle business. But understanding that time commitment, I think, is a very big indicator of what type of business that you should be. And then the enablers is what we're talking about here, is incubators and accelerators. And you can have that for both types of business. Again, I just encourage people to understand what type of business they are, because they'll go to different types of incubators and different types of accelerators depending on what business they are.
Yeah, I love the model, Matthew, because it is absolutely defining, just the way you've portrayed it there in the slide. And I just want to share with the audience that I take a very different approach to identifying the clients that we work with. And I've come up with my own set of standards on the evolution of growth. And we do start with that startup individual, typically a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, somebody on their own with an idea and wanting to get to some stage where they can be self-sustaining and derive income and support themselves. And there's a lot of those folks in this region. The next level that we use to define our entrepreneurs would be a phrase that's pretty common, but I'm redefining it. I'm calling that second stage entrepreneurs. So you go from this beginning stage of idea and concept, or maybe you've been tooling around at home or in some rented space. And second stage for us are entrepreneurs who are doing what Matthew just said. They went full time. They went full steam ahead. They're making the commitment to their business. So that's one of the criteria for me saying you're second stage. Another criteria for being a second stage entrepreneur is that you're actually deriving income, or I should say you have a revenue stream. You may be operating at a loss, but at least you have a revenue stream going on. And that's a second stage organization. And then I go into the next level, which of course would be a mature business, possibly with employees, possibly with some sort of a debt equity relationship in the marketplace. And so we typically work with those three stages of businesses. I've got some second stage businesses in-house right now. And an example is a gentleman who has a manufacturing concern. He is still, by the definition of things like the Small Business Administration and other folks, a small business entrepreneur because he's all by himself. But he has developed a model as a second stage entrepreneur where he has completely outsourced everything he does. His manufacturing, his parts, his components, his pieces, his assembly. He doesn't do any of that stuff. He's sourcing parts and pieces from China, having them imported to the States. He's getting other things manufactured for his product here domestically. He's collecting it all, and then he's hiring assemblers, and he really is the sales and marketing engine behind his product line. Very successful. But interestingly enough, he's all by himself.
You know, this is such an important aspect of folks, you know, really getting clear on their business and what it is they're trying to accomplish by becoming involved with an incubator or an accelerator. And, you know, the question that I hear more often than not, working with a lot of startups, is, you know, is an incubator going to find me funding? You know, are they going to help me in raising capital? You know, that's typically the question. Or are they going to help me in what you're talking about, Michael? You know, the manufacturing piece. Are they going to help me outsource getting parts from China? Are they going to help me get manufacturing overseas? You know, what's the real level of support and help, you know, from the incubator accelerator model? And I think a lot of folks have that question that just lingers there.
Yeah, that's a great one. And this, again, as Matthew introduced earlier, he's looking at a different slice of the marketplace there, and I'll let him address that. But I want to talk about the fact that we teach bootstrapping. And that's something that a lot of folks don't know about, don't understand. They think it takes money to make money. And so we teach the idea of bootstrapping, doing with what you have. And why that becomes important is because that sweat equity then turns into a commitment. And it's also something that first stage investors like to see. So they want to know that you've invested your soul, your money, you've hawked your soul, you've hawked your bank account and all your assets to make your dream come true. And then they're going to get really interested in what you're doing. We have a social entrepreneur. She's a 2-year Thrive member. She has a business that's built around the ecology of the world, green space of the world. And so she's a social entrepreneur. She's a not-for-profit organization. She knew nothing about writing a business plan. Very smart woman. We helped her complete a very exhaustive business plan that included a sustainable economic model. And she presented that to one of the local foundations here in Sarasota, and that foundation funded her. So when you say get money, it doesn't always mean it's coming from the traditional sources. In her case, as a social entrepreneur in a space where she could go to a local foundation and then get that capital that she needed to grow her business.
That's great. Matt, your insight here?
Yeah, I think I'll give you kind of a standard answer of it all depends. It all depends on the incubator and the type of business you are. So to answer the actual question of does an incubator help you raise money? It can. Again, it depends on the type of incubator. So for example, my incubator program, if you go through one of my programs, when you are ready, and I will help you theoretically to get ready, we will make introductions to investors, right? Now, does that mean you're going to get money? No, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I will help you get ready to go to an equity investor. Now, again, that is very different than what Michael does, and that's very different than if you want to go to a bank. We can also help you get yourself ready to go get a bank loan, right? And do you call that an investor? Theoretically, I would, right? A bank is investing in their time, money, and effort into a company. So I would call that an investor also. But again, it really depends on the incubator. It really depends on the accelerator, what they're targeted at and what they do. And so there you really want to dive into the details of what that incubator accelerator provides. And my next slide, when we get to it, no hurry, Paula, we'll kind of walk you through an example of what I do or what I did in my last program that will kind of give you an idea of what one program, my program, would do for a company. So, I mean, I'll go to it. So Paula.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that too, Matt. Maybe we can jump right in there.
Sure.
You know, and this is a great lead-in question for that. Specifically, you know, a lot of folks look to incubators or accelerators to get that funding. You know, should people be paying for an incubator, paying to be part of an incubator? And it's a question I want you and Michael to address, and then maybe jump into this particular slide, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, great. So again, I'm going to probably say this a lot over the next 30 more minutes. It all depends. So my program, the one that you're seeing right now, is a veteran program. So the veterans did not have to pay for that. And we offset the cost with sponsors. There will be incubators and accelerator programs that do charge a nominal fee. So it all depends. Should you pay? I would answer that question of it depends what the incubator accelerator is offering, right? And so if you find an incubator or an accelerator program that has a great group of mentors, that offers great introductions, that provides a whole bunch of free Amazon web credits, then perhaps it is valuable to pay to participate in that program. But it will all depend.
Michael, your insight here?
Yeah, you know, we offer similar services. You can't help but, you know, educate, train, and develop, you know, your peers unless you provide these sort of services. I like the 3-month part-time evening model that's listed here. I would tell you that our model is built around 3 10-week cohorts of training. So we do 10 weeks with a 24/7 available online curriculum, and then we teach to that once per week while the students have access to that 24/7. We teach to it once per week, and then that's a 10-week program. Then they go into another 10-week program followed by a 10-week launch. So over the course of 30 weeks, if they are truly committed, and they're following the curriculum and taking the advice and counsel and you know, making things happen on their end, at the end of 30 weeks, we're seeing success in those who truly want to launch a business. We don't charge for our programming. We are a not-for-profit organization. We are funded through Department of Labor and Department of Economic Opportunity grant monies that we spend on the constituents here in this region. The funds that we do collect from participants in our program are typically funds associated with them leasing office space in our center, which we pass to them at cost. So it's not, we don't make money on it. because the building where they lease the space is a state-owned building. We take our direct lease costs from the state and pro rata that on the size of their office, and they get a great deal on office space. And then what we do is we provide them with all the furnishings, telephone, desks, keys, key fobs to the building, 24/7 access, and all that kind of stuff.
Great. And then Matt, I know I have one more slide here for you too, just to kind of go through the cohort model that you've got there at SCF as well. And we've got a couple of questions that are coming in that I want to continue with also. So maybe we can wrap up the course with you, Matt, and then move into the next questions here.
Sure, yeah. And so again, this is just an example of what I've done previously. So this is an example of one incubator program. And I think what everybody should understand is that everything's different, right? So Michael's program and my program are two entirely different things. We target different groups of people. We kind of target different results. So my program, my veteran program, this is kind of what was offered. So you can take a look through this, but this is kind of what the program entailed. We had 7 mentors who came alongside the companies. I've got some of the people listed here who were doing the classes. I brought in speakers. This was an early schedule here, so I had a bunch of TBDs, but this gives you an idea of what my program looked like. It was roughly 2.5 months, and then we ended with a pitch deck. That December 1st event was a pitch day, so the companies that were ready, they pitched their business up on stage. Very similar to kind of a Shark Tank-esque model, and then we gave an award. So we didn't have investors there. We did have investors there, but what we did is we gave a cash prize at the end of our program. And then on a side note, one of the companies just raised a whole bunch of money that'll go official here in the next couple of days. But one of the companies that went through our program, they raised a bunch of money from investors. So that's kind of what that model is.
Oh, congrats, Matt. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, those success stories are so amazing. And I have to say, I'm so glad that you two have committed some time here. This community is so rich with resources for our business people, from entrepreneurs to small businesses. I'm always amazed at how much is available to really, anchor and support our business community. It's just so awesome. And you guys are really super passionate about that, which is, makes me happy because I am too. And I get a little bit too excited about it. To answer the one question that came in, yes, this is being recorded. So the recording, and at the beginning of the slide presentation, the contact information was there for Matt and for Michael. So you'll have the slides and a recording that you'll be emailed after the event. So for those folks that want to, have that information. And I'm going to jump in here to questions. And Michael, you're talking about a foundation that you were referring to. Who funded that business?
Sure. I don't mind sharing at all. We have such a wonderful philanthropic community in the region, and there are a number of foundations. The one in specific that I was referring to with that social entrepreneur was the Morancic Foundation. Of course, just to name a few others, because they're not alone, they're in good company here. 2 other major foundations that you'll see plenty of gift giving from include the Patterson Foundation and the Gulf Coast Community Foundation. I do want to add that, Matthew mentioned it, that there are, sometimes you overlook bank as an investor, as a funding source, and they clearly are. We have a strong relationship with a number of the financial banking centers here in the region. And in fact, next week, during our regularly scheduled member workshop every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, we call it From the Bench. At next week's From the Bench session, we have a local institution, financial institution, coming in, talking to our members about getting their business credit in place. So that's that migration from personal credit to business credit, so that they are then able to establish themselves in a different way financially. And so that workshop's happening next week.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, our foundations, our banks, the financial community here is just so robust. And I always, when I talk to startups, I'm always encouraging them to go to a bank first, because interest is definitely better than giving away a piece of your company. If you can get a bank loan, that's definitely the way that I encourage folks to go.
Yeah, you know,
At the
Paula,
outset.
on that note of the region and the people that support this region, I guess I just want to add, about 2 years ago, we made a conscious choice at Thrive to get heavily engaged in what we call distance learning. And the idea of distance learning took away the geography of having to come to our center to participate in our activities. And so we were early on in the region in promoting training and education for individuals without the need of traveling to our center. So our workshops, our seminars, our online curriculum are examples of things that we were broadcasting via the web, whether it be through meetings like this or other forums. And so while I keep mentioning Sarasota and Manatee County, it's very apparent to us that our constituents go way beyond that. We've got folks in New York, we've got folks in South Florida, we've got folks in North Florida that we've never met personally. But because of the distance learning capabilities, and of course, since March of last year, all of us have actually probed, better ways to communicate.
Sure.
We're able to do that for entrepreneurs with a great amount of ease.
And Matt, do you have a distance option with what you've got going on there at SCF as well, or is it mostly hands-on location there?
We do have a distance option. I will always recommend that you do all of kind of your business work in person if you can, but yes, we do have a distance option.
Okay, because there was a question here about incubator programs in Naples. I don't know if either one of you know of any physical locations down there in the southern portion of the state, but
yeah. So if you look at the slide here, this is just kind of a quick snapshot of the programs, and the way this is set up is the programs on the left are more kind of, I would say, targeted at small business. That's not to say they can't help any type of business. And then the ones on the center are the school programs, and then Grow Florida. And then the ones on the right are kind of more targeted towards startups again. So for Naples, I'm actually not from the area, but I think FCGU is down in that vicinity. They do have an incubator program. They do have a number of programs. I think they're open to the public, but don't quote me on that, but I would look down at FCGU.
Okay, fantastic. And then question out to both of you folks, and I love this. People are asking, can I get your help? I don't need any funding, but I'm interested in going through the program. I love that question, Monica. That's great.
Yeah, the answer on my end is absolutely. But what we don't do is we're not a information center where you pick up the phone call, you take an hour or two, and you go down your list of questions, and we never hear from you again. Now, it's not like we won't provide feedback. We want to help everybody that we can, but really our structure is geared towards membership and providing a sustaining and compounding level of training and development.
Thanks for that clarification, Michael. Matt?
Yeah, we're kind of similar to that. I will do office hours. I'm more than happy to connect with you and to answer your questions. Here's what I normally find, though, is that I will answer any question you want. If you want to just toss 100 questions at me, I will answer 100 questions. Because it's not really in the answering the question that's important, or that I would say, because those questions can be answered really. Google it, right? We live in probably the best age in the world to start a business because everything is online. So it's not really the answer that's important. It's actually, are you going to take that advice and do it, right?
It's the action, right? The action that they actually take.
So yeah, I will tell anybody anything they want because 98% of them are going to do nothing with it.
I so love the response, Matt, because it's exactly the way we are as well. We can talk about all kinds of subjects, and I like to remind our members that, information is not knowledge. It's just that, it's information. If you want knowledge and wisdom, you've got to go a lot farther than just Googling something on the web. And so by asking a bunch of questions, yeah, giving answers, we can do that all day long. Where is that going to get you? In fact, you probably didn't need to call me. You could have done that online.
Yeah, that's great. And this is one of the pitfalls that I see with startups and small businesses. Are there any other pitfalls that you guys have come across within the incubation environment there that folks should just be aware of?
Yeah, my people giggle with me. People that know me, that know our services and know what we've done. I've got this ever perpetual drawing on one of the whiteboards in one of the meeting rooms. And it's a rude, crude drawing in my best abilities of the cart before the horse. And I take people in there and I show them that drawing to remind them that a lot of times folks come to me, this is a pitfall. They come to me and they think the answer to getting started in business is having gone and ordered the latest version of QuickBooks Pro for $600 or $700. So they just spent $500, $600, $700 and they got the latest accounting package from QuickBooks. And they've already gone ahead and formed an LLC. They have no customers, they don't have a business plan, and they don't know exactly what they're going to do, but they're coming to me telling me, I'm in business. I own QuickBooks and I'm incorporated.
This is good.
And so I can't tell you how many dozens of times that's happened. That's a pitfall. So I like to get folks, before they spend the money and do all that, to get them through the proper methodology of getting started.
That's great. Matt, any insight there in terms of pitfalls?
Yeah, so here's the pitfall I'll give you. And so, and this is going to be hard for everybody to kind of think through, but this is the question I ask everybody, and 99 times out of 100, this is answered incorrectly, okay? So here's the question I want to ask every single one of the 20 or however many people listen, okay? What problem is your business going to solve, right? So it seems like a very simple question that everybody will have an answer to. And what happens is everybody will respond with what their business does, right? And so that's actually not the question I ever ask, right? I am asking, what problem is your business going to solve? And so that usually spins everybody up as they try to kind of rephrase what their business does, but they still don't ever actually figure out, or very often, they are missing what their business, what the problem their business is to solve. And so I recommend everybody to think through that question. What problem is your business going to solve? And again, most of the time, what that answer is what they do. And so the problem with saying what your business does is you're focused around the business owner as opposed to the customer, right? And so again, very simple question, but always a pitfall. And that's the first question I ask everybody. And most people can't think about it right. So switch your perspective around, think about your customer, and answer the question, what problem is your company solving? There you go.
It's really good that you guys are asking these compelling questions, because I remember back in the 90s, I took a customer-driven marketing class. And it was very different from the college level business classes that I was taking, which were very focused on the business and not the customer. And that is such a huge transition in mindset for a lot of business owners is, are they actually going to present something that's viable? It leads me right into the Eric Ries book that I love so dearly, The Lean Startup. You've got people like Michael talking about investing, they get tens of thousands of dollars to build this bang up prototype, and they haven't even researched whether or not they're solving a problem. So that's really great insight, Matt. We got a couple more questions here. And I guess on the whole, do either one of you, are you aware of any sites that folks can look at for incubators across the country? Because this specific question was any incubator programs in Seattle. Are there any resources out there, sites for nationwide incubators that list maybe a bunch of them? Or
I've never come across one that has the entire landscape. Actually, the SBA, if you dig around with the SBA, they've actually got a page that I've come across that actually does relatively well talking about the resources across the country. But literally Google Seattle Incubator, and there will be probably Seattle probably has 50, literally has 50 different options. So yeah, just Google GTS, right? I won't say what that translates to.
I say that all the time. I'm sure Michael does too. And then this is a really good question too. Do you introduce companies to prospective angel investors? And we talked about that a little bit, but maybe Michael, you can talk about that with respect to Thrive.
Sure. The answer is yes, with caution. And the reason I added the last piece with caution is that we are always cognizant of what our actual role is. We are not attorneys. We are not accountants. We are not professional association members of any sort providing those types of more structured advice. Making introductions is easy to do, but what we don't want to do is to introduce somebody just for the sake of the introduction because it's what they want, and then find out that that introduction went south, and now that entrepreneur is saying, look what you did to me. So we're cautious about how we approach relationships, third-party relationships, but certainly the more we understand the entrepreneur's needs and what the investors are doing, we have no problem doing a little bit of matchmaking. In fact, that's in the ordinary course of business.
Matt?
Yep. Very, very similar. I'm going to answer that question a little backwards. When you're ready, if you go through one of my programs or if you work with me, when you are ready, I will most certainly introduce you to angel investors. However, it's when you are ready, because there is there's a certain degree of preparation that's involved. There are only so many doors that you can get opened if you don't kind of bring a decent company, right? So again, when a company is ready, yes, most certainly I will introduce them to angel investors.
Yeah.
That being said, I do want to say one more point, Michael. Again, Google, right? There's a whole bunch of angel networks out there, Google, that will have open. You can just sign up and you can go pitch to them.
And the presentation that we did, yeah, and the presentation we did last week too on angel and VC funding is certainly one you want to take a look at if that's what you're looking at doing, because there is a process there in being ready. And we outlined that pretty well last week. Michael?
Yeah, I was just going to elaborate on that very phrase as well, when you're ready. I take it to one extra level. It's not just are all the boxes checked. It's whether you have the emotional content to move forward. Do you have the psychological ability to endure what happens once you take on that money? Do you have what it takes to be a good steward of that money in the eyes of that investor? It's not just about having the financials, having the need, having the business plan with all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. There's a personal side of being ready to take on investment capital.
That is so true, Michael. My gosh. And when you said the word matchmaking, I was giggling a little bit because this is a marriage of sorts. When you take on capital into a startup, you are linked to that person. So, value systems and things of that nature, you really need to have that aligned with whoever you're bringing into the fold, because that can go sour and south very quickly if you don't have the right fit there. So that's such a great point. I appreciate that. And we had a question, for both of your programs, is there an application process? Are there deadlines? Are there certain requirements for folks that are interested in working with either one of you? What's the actual process of onboarding there?
Yeah, very briefly for me. So I have, again, multiple programs. I do have office space, so co-working space, for lack of a better term, that you can contact us and you can get depending on what size of space you need. So that's a relatively simple. You just reach out to us and you can do that application online. And then I have cohort incubation programs that will open up as they begin. And again, that's an application process we do online. So we'll have it in the text or later provided, but innovate.scf.edu is our website, innovate.scf.edu, and it's all there, including my contact information.
Fantastic. Michael?
Yes, we do have application process as well for membership in Thrive, but I think a big piece that I didn't probably clarify now that I've listened to what Matt talked about, our co-work space is space where you can just pop in on the day, come in, set up and work and take advantage of what we call our tech-centric environment. We offer our co-work space at no charge. So you can come in and co-work any day of the week, all day long, hang out, use our services at no fee. If, however, you want to move into the center and have a dedicated office, then that's another level of investment by the entrepreneur. And we actually have a traditional lease agreement. Now, what we've done with the lease agreement is we've made it completely non-onerous in any way. So we don't want first and last month's security deposit. You get a 30-day out. There are really, it's a one-page document. All we really need from you is pay your rent every month and make sure your insurance is up to date.
This question came in for Matt, and specifically, Matt, when you say investment ready, what exactly do you mean? For example, a prototype, early customers, team, a business plan? What exactly are you talking about there?
Well, so how much time do we have? So, there's a lot of factors that go into that, right? What Michael had said earlier was, right, do you know what you're going to do with the money? Primarily, I would say the easy answer is a pitch deck, right? A pitch deck of 12 slides that's going to talk about the problem that you're solving, who you're solving it for, what your business looks like, how you're going to make money, what the market looks like, who your competition is, who your team is. So that's basically the pitch deck, right? In about 12 seconds there. But in general, it's a pitch deck, but there are other things, right? I need to make sure that before I introduce you to an investor, you are going to, make a case that you're investing in, right? And so that's going to depend from company to company. But the easy answer is, do you have a pitch deck that you can take and pitch to somebody?
Yeah, that pitch deck, and also I'm going to pitch the business model canvas, because that is such a simplified way of kind of outlining your business plan and getting to that pitch deck. I think the extensive business planning of yesterday is no longer. People are really looking for a much more quick snapshot picture of what it is that you're doing. So that's a great synopsis. Michael, anything to add here?
No, I want to echo what you just said. In fact, I'm halfway through a 10-week cohort right now. And just on Tuesday evening, we introduced to that group the business model canvas, exactly what you were talking about. And the business model canvas also serves as the major driving component of our teachings in the second 10-week cohort as well. We do a deep dive on all those elements.
That's fantastic. Well, guys, any other questions, any other insights you want to provide to folks here?
If you're looking for a sign, this is it.
Matt?
Yeah, no, nothing. Good luck, right? It's a journey, right? It's a journey, and just do a bit of your own work, right? So that's the key. That's what part of these presentations are is a bit of the homework. So.
Definitely. Well, thank you both for your time and volunteering with us and giving our folks some really great, solid information to utilize as a launching post for startups. I'm really appreciative of that. And thanks, folks, for tuning in. Stay tuned for May. We have our digital marketing series is going to be coming up in May. So if you're interested in learning more about that, we'll be sending out some information there and promoting that. Thank you all. Lots of great presentation comments, by the way, guys. So fantastic job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.